Hello, everybody. I'm here with Abbi Perets, who is the owner of her business, which is called Successful Freelance Moms. And we're going to be talking about balancing work and family and how you can run a successful business from your home. Welcome, Abbi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I am too. I have been so looking forward to this interview because I know it's so important. I know it's so important when you have children to be able to have your own income. Even if you're happily married, even if you don't need to work, it's so important to have some passion other than family. And I know, a lot of you are so devoted to your families and you're so devoted to your kids, but you have to have some interest other than that, because otherwise, when the empty nest time comes, what are you going to do? So Abby's going to tell us all about that today.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to share, and there's a little process we got to go through here. So first I share, and then I have to click present, and I have to talk while I do it because otherwise I will get it wrong. And now I got to pull out my notes. Hold on, because I can't give a presentation without notes. And then I got to move my notes over here and keep the presentation over there. There we go. All right. So hi, I'm Abbi Perets from Successful Freelance Mom, and we're going to be talking about building a business as a mom. So let's start by talking about you. You are starting to organize your life, and you've probably been a rule follower for a long time. Like, you did the things that other people told you to do. You got good grades in school, you got the degree, you moved up the ladder at work, you built a home and a family, and now maybe you're feeling a little bit restless and guilty. You feel guilty whenever you want more for yourself. So I have a spoiler alert for you. And the spoiler alert is that you're allowed to want more from your life, and you're allowed to have more in your life. So today we're going to talk about you and why it's okay for you to want more. And we're going to talk about some of the lies we tell ourselves about time and the only way to uncover the truth. Then we're going to talk about what you need to know about willpower and motivation. And my hint to you is that neither of them work in the long term. And we'll talk about 3 keys for success in business and in life. So during this conversation, what I'd say is keep an open mind and remember that new information can sometimes sound crazy at first. And please don't hesitate. Ask questions if you don't understand something. Even if you're watching this on the replay and you have questions, I'm a very reachable person. Monty is a very reachable person. Like, you can ask us questions and we'll get you the answers that you need. And I'm going to start off by asking you a question. And that question is, are you smarter than a 5th grader? So let's find out. Do you ever say things like, oh my gosh, I'm hopeless at math. It's totally not my thing. Have you ever said something like that? Maybe for you, it's not math. Maybe you say things like, I'm a terrible driver, or I can never find my way anywhere, or I can't keep an organized home, or I'll never be able to play the piano. So this is a story that you've told yourself again and again. And I'm going to show you why you've been telling yourself that story. So let's pretend for a moment, think back to when you were in like 2nd, 3rd grade, and you came home from school with an A+ on your spelling test or your math test or whatever it was. And your mom or dad, with all of the best intentions in the world and full of love and pride for you, said to you, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. You are so smart. And they pinned that test up on the refrigerator and they showed it to everybody who came in and they said, look at what my beautiful daughter did. She is so smart. So what's the message that they gave you? The message is you did well on that test because you are smart. That doesn't seem bad, right? Let's fast forward a week. There's another test. This time, you didn't do quite as well. You got 7 out of 10. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not that perfect 100% score. Now, remember, last time, what you heard is that you did so well on that test because you're smart. So if you take this home, what is the obvious conclusion to your 2nd grade mind? Or maybe even your middle school or your high school mind? Maybe you're not so smart after all. Just sit with that a minute. and think about the messages we're hearing. And if you're thinking to yourself, okay, that's dumb, maybe a second grader would believe that, but a high school kid or an adult, now remember the things we talked about before, the stories you tell yourself. I'm a terrible driver. I can't parallel park. I can't find my way home from anywhere, whatever it is. All the stories you tell yourself about the things that you're not good at. Now let's go back to our scenario where you brought home that A+ the first week, and imagine that scene again with one tiny change. Imagine instead of saying, oh my gosh, you are so smart, imagine that your mom or dad or whoever it was said to you, wow, you must have worked so hard. That's a really small change, right? Instead of you're really smart, you worked hard. And now let's think about what happens the next week when there's another test and you get a 70%. This time you think to yourself, I guess I didn't work hard enough. That's nothing to be ashamed of. Maybe you have a time management problem and you need to study more, but in the second grade or in middle school or even in high school, you can recognize that like, okay, I didn't study for this test. I didn't actually put in any effort, so I didn't do as well as I could have. Maybe next time I should actually look at the list of spelling words before the test, and then I might get another A+. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, please, there is no way that that tiny little change makes a difference. Let me tell you about a study that proved exactly that that tiny little change makes exactly that difference. This study was conducted by a Stanford researcher named Carol Dweck, and she repeated the study with hundreds and hundreds of students in elementary schools. So here's what they did. They gave kids 10 pretty difficult problems to solve. And all of these problems were taken from a nonverbal IQ test. So it's like math and patterns and matching things and stuff like that. Now, most of the kids did pretty well. And then Carol and her team did one of two things. For half the kids, they said to them, wow, you got 8 right. That's a really good score. You must be smart at this. So they praised the kids for their ability. And for the other half of the kids, they said, wow, you got 8 right. That's a really good score. You must have worked really hard. So they're praising kids for their effort. That was literally the only difference. What happened next? They offered all of the kids a chance to complete a challenging task that could teach them something new. 90% of the kids who were praised for effort, you worked really hard, wanted to do this new task. But the ability kids were not interested in anything that could make someone question their ability. And then after that optional test, the team gave all of the kids a set of problems to solve that were harder than the first test. And all of a sudden, the kids who had been told, you must be really smart at this, thought they weren't very smart. And they made comments that reflected how they felt about themselves. Success meant that they were smart, and failure obviously meant that they were deficient. The effort kids never thought they failed. They thought, oh, I just have to work harder now. They didn't see the problems as any kind of reflection on their intelligence. But wait, there's more. The first time the kids did the problems, they all enjoyed it. They said things like, this is fun. But after the ability and the effort groups were set, and the ability kids didn't do well on the second set of problems, they didn't like it anymore. The effort kids loved the harder problems. They said things like, this is the most fun ever, even when they were getting things wrong. And then the researchers gave the ability kids easy problems to do. Based on what they had done on the very first test, it should have been simple for them to ace these problems. But because their intelligence had been called into question, they actually wound up doing worse, whereas the effort kids sailed through those easy problems. And then the last bit about this study, the bit that's the most fascinating and horrifying at the same time, is that when the researchers told the kids, hey, we're going to do these problems with a whole bunch of other kids in other schools, could you tell them what you think about it? And they gave them a page where they could write what they thought. And on that page was a small space where they were supposed to write the score that they had earned. So guess what happened? Almost 40% of the ability kids lied about their scores. Whenever Carol Dweck talks about this story, she says, we took ordinary children and made them into liars by telling them they were smart. Is that crazy?
Awful.
I know, right? So, yeah. So when we talk about this, like there's a lot that you carry from childhood. There's a lot of stories that we tell ourselves that start early on. And again, it's not like people did this to us maliciously, but it's there and it's something that we need to be aware of. So,
and also, many people listening to us today, they may be doing this and they don't know it to their own kids, right?
Right. And exactly. That's, when our parents told us, you're so smart, you're so talented, they did not do this like out of maliciousness or out of evil. Certainly when you tell your own kids, oh my gosh, you're so smart, you are not doing it because you want them to grow up and not be able to do things. That's not the intention. But here's what happens. We all love to be praised, but when we praise people for natural ability or intelligence, instead of effort and hard work, we make it really hard to handle any kind of failure and not see that as a reflection of our own self-worth, right? Like think about how you feel sometimes when you can't do something the first time. Now, if you're a person who okay, well, I'm just going to have to work harder. Awesome. Like that's great. But not everybody feels like that. Some of us have been carrying these messages from childhood that we didn't realize were there. And that's what's made things difficult for us along the way. So think about your own kids right now. They are learning how to do new stuff every single day. Think about what happens when kids are learning to sit up and crawl and walk. They definitely don't sit up perfectly the first time. They don't get it the first time they try. They fall down a lot, right? But you would never dream of telling your kid, well, I guess you're never going to learn to sit up. I'm not going to put any effort into you. I'm just going to deal with your brothers over here. Like we wouldn't say that because that's crazy, right? We would never tell our kids, oh, don't try to do that again. You're just going to screw it. Like, it's not how we think. We think like, when your kid's learning to walk and they're trying and they fall down, what do you clap? You're like, oh my gosh, that was so good. You should do that again, because we're so excited and we want them to try things over and over again. But when we try something brand new for the first time, if we don't get it exactly right the first time, we are so hard on ourselves. Why? So this is a lot of why. This is a lot of that why. These stories that you've told yourself and these stories you've let other people tell you about what you can and can't do, or about what you do and don't deserve, or what you can and can't have, those are stories. And you can rewrite that story anytime you want. So now we've given you some of the tools that you need to be smarter than a fifth grader. And I want to be clear, you are allowed to want more from your life. So now let's talk about time. When you're at home.
Let me ask you a question. So these were fifth grade kids? Is that
Sorry?
The kids in the test, were they fifth graders then?
Yeah, they were fifth graders.
I missed that before. Okay.
Yeah. They were fifth grade children. And it just, like this study, they did it in the first school and then they did it in the second school, and they literally repeated the study in hundreds of schools across the country. And they were like, truly, they were horrified by what they saw. How they were able to, set these kids up into these two groups and the dramatic effect that it had on them. If you've never read Carol Dweck's book, it's called Mindset, and it is phenomenal. And it's all about fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And it is absolutely wonderful. I highly recommend it.
Great.
So time. When you're home with small children, it's really easy to feel like, oh, my baby never naps, or my kids never nap at the same time, or I never get to go to the bathroom by myself.
I know.
Or I have, I have no idea what I did today, but it's 6 p.m. and I'm still in my bathrobe. Yeah. Like we've had these days, right? And even if you don't have small children, it's really easy to say things like, I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to write those thank you notes. I don't have time to call my mom. Time is really tricky. It expands and contracts in extremely inconvenient ways over and over again. But we humans are also tricky. We tell ourselves all kinds of stories about time, and often we believe the stories we tell ourselves. Things like, I work over 80 hours a week. This is one of the most popular lies about time. We all overestimate the hours we work because so much of what we do can feel like work, even when it's not. You might genuinely be out of your house for 80 hours every week, but it's probably not fair to say that you're putting in focused work for all of those hours. In order to work 80 hours a week, you have to be working, not commuting, not eating lunch, not in the bathroom, from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., 5 days a week. Seriously, if you're doing that, what is your job and how are you watching this?
Yeah.
Even better are the people who claim to work 100 hours a week. These people have an extremely loose definition of work. 100 hours a week is 20 hours a day, 5 days a week. That means you're working from 7 a.m. until 3 a.m. Do you know anyone who does that consistently who's not like the president? Related question. Do you know anyone who claims to do that? Because that person is lying. Okay, so another lie that we tell ourselves is, I spend all day with my kids. Oops, sorry. Oh, did I not put my notes in here? Oh my goodness. All right. Well, it definitely feels like you're spending all day with your kids when you're at home with them. 100%. I totally understand that. But stop and think about how many hours are you actually spending with your children? How many hours are you actually focused with them and not holding onto your phone and checking it and on Facebook and whatever? How much time are you actually spending with your kids? Because it feels like you're with them all day, but if you don't focus on them, they're still craving your attention. They still want you, and they're not going to give you a moment of peace. One of the things that I found really helped when my own children were smaller was if I would kind of love hard on them, like if I would for 15, 30 minutes not have a phone in my hand and just be with them and be 100% present for them, they would kind of get tired of me and go off and do their own thing after that 15 or 20 minutes was up. They wanted their own space back, right? They want to be near me and they want to climb all over me and they want to cuddle and they want the story and whatever, but then they want to move on. And that happens when you let them fill up on you. But if you tell yourself, yeah, I'm spending all day with my kids, and what you're actually doing is spending all day going, like this. No, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I see the tower. I see that. Like, that's not spending time with your kids. So we all do it. And sometimes it's what we have to do, but that's not spending time with your kids. Then I spend hours cooking and cleaning every day. Seriously? Do you live in Downton Abbey? Like, what are you doing all day long? Why are you doing that? What is so important that you're cooking and cleaning all day long? Now, it can absolutely feel like you're cooking and cleaning all day long, 100%. But you have to start thinking about, what are you actually spending your time doing? What does cooking mean to you? When you're starting dinner, does starting dinner mean now is when you remember that you don't actually have the ingredients for what you wanted to make, so you're running to the store? Because that's not cooking. That's, oh, I forgot that we had no milk and also no cheese and also no pasta. So now everybody get in the car and we're going to the grocery store. You can't say that you spent that hour cooking dinner. You spent that hour driving to the store and coming back and unpacking groceries, and then you made dinner. So you have to be careful when you think about these things and think about what you're actually spending that time on. So these are the time lies that feel completely true all the time. There are absolutely exceptions to all of these things. It feels like you're caring for children all day long, but think about it. A newborn sleeps 18 hours a day. And since very few of those hours seem to happen at night, they must be sleeping sometime when it's daylight. Even toddlers sleep 14 to 16 hours a day. And many of those hours are at night, but toddlers also nap. Are there exceptions? Absolutely. Children with special needs, sleep disorders, other conditions, they might need more of your time and attention. But there's no reason for you to feel like spending all day with your kids, if that's something that makes you unhappy, then you've got to change something about that. And then, yes, the cooking and cleaning. I really bought into this for a long time. I thought that I was absolutely spending enormous amounts of my day cooking and cleaning. It turns out that I was spending a lot of time playing Words with Friends on my phone, but that is a different story, which we will get into. There is literally no reason for you to spend that 8 hours a day cooking and cleaning. And you're simply not in the kitchen as much as you think they are. So we can fix this issue as long as we acknowledge it first, right? As long as you start to say, oh yeah, like you start dinner, but then you go change a diaper. And then your fourth grader is like, which is the sign for division? Is it the X? No, it's not the X, Also, the Girl Scout cookie order was due last week, and 57 other things that are not cooking dinner are happening right now. So that's not time that you're spending. It feels like you spent it 4 hours on it, but really the macaroni cooked up in 8 minutes. So we've got to be truthful about these things. Yeah. So a related time lie is this will only take a minute. Hang on, there's somebody calling my phone who I don't recognize. A related time lie is this will only take a minute. This is the lie of the chronically late. The kids will be ready in 1 minute. I'm leaving in 1 minute. We are going right now. Ha. As the person who is always early, Moni and I were both early for this call, by the way. Like, we are these people. So I have spent hours of my life waiting for the late people. Here's the truth. It takes a lot more than a minute to do most things, especially when children are involved. If you're telling yourself, I can be out the door in 10 minutes, are you really thinking about how long it takes to strap your baby, who seems to have 7 arms and 5 legs, into that car seat while simultaneously ensuring that the 6-year-old keeps his pants on? Perhaps you're being a wee bit optimistic in your estimate there. If you are honest with yourself and you say things like, it takes 28 minutes from the time I say, we're leaving now, to the time I pull out of the garage, that is a game changer. If you know that it takes 28 minutes, you can plan accordingly. So now we're going to look at the biggest time lie out there, which is, I don't have time for whatever it is that you want to do. So here's the deal. You have 168 hours in a week. Let's say that you sleep about 6 hours a night. Ideally, you'd be sleeping 7 or 8 hours a night, but it doesn't always happen when you have young kids. So we're going to go with 6 hours a night. That is 42 hours out of your week. So you've got 126 left over. Believe me, I am not doing this math on the fly. I wrote it all down. Let's imagine for a minute that you are spending a full 40 hours a week taking care of your house because you live in Downton Abbey. Okay. So pretend for a minute that you have a full-time job taking care of your home, cooking, cleaning, laundry, grocery shopping. Even if you spent a full 40 hours a week on that, you still got 86 left over. So where is that time going? And let's say you are sleeping a little more. You're getting in that full 8 hours a night, and you don't take off weekends when you're taking care of your house. So 8 times 7, 56, and another 8 times 7, 56. So that's sleeping and taking care of the house, 112 hours, which still leaves you with 56 hours to fill. And I don't want you to think that I'm just a person who has loads of free time. Let me tell you a little bit about me. Hi, I am 45 years old for one more week. I have 5 kids, including one with intellectual disabilities. And before Corona, my husband traveled 175 days a year. This is my actual family. The tall one there is my son, Abbi, the one who's intellectually disabled. He's also on the autism spectrum, and he had cancer. He's better now. The one in the middle sticking his tongue out, that is my youngest son, Amit. He was born with only one ear, and we don't even consider that a disability in this house. So I know a little bit about not having a lot of time, which is why I don't buy it when people say, I don't have time to do that. And I include myself in that. If I catch myself saying, oh, I don't have time to whatever, I make myself stop and reframe. It's not a priority for me. Whatever that thing is, it's not a priority. Now, sometimes this
did it honestly. I don't know how you did it, with 5 kids and all the challenges.
Well, honestly, I mean, like, this is it. This is exactly how I did it. I decided that some things weren't priorities. Like, like for me, I'm not ever going to fold laundry because it's not a priority. I don't care. Like I'll let laundry. I mean, now I make my kids do it because they're older, but when they were smaller, I just let the clean laundry could be in the basket. Like I decided that was a thing I didn't care about. It had to be neat. It had to be in the basket, but it didn't have to be folded and on the shelves. So things like that. Like I can try to pretend that I don't have time to learn to play the piano, but the truth is that learning to play the piano right now is not a priority for me. I would rather spend that time on my business, for example. So we make times for the things that matter to us. Now, the only way I know of to discover the truth about your time is to track your time. And what you need to do is track it for a full week. For a full week, every 15 to 30 minutes, you just make a note of what you're doing. But the thing is, it only works if you're honest. It's like when you're writing down what you eat or what you spend. If you only write down carrots and you don't write down the cupcakes and the handful of nuts and the glass of orange juice or the chips you ate off your kid's plate, you're not going to lose weight. And you're going to look at your food log and you'll be like, I am only eating carrots and I am not losing weight. But that is a lie. So, you can keep telling yourself that story and nothing is ever going to change. If you write down, I only spent money on groceries, and you don't bother to write down the $5 you spent at Claire's Boutique or the app you bought on iTunes or the awesome top you got at Target on the clearance rack, when you run out of money before the end of the month, you can tell yourself, I have no idea where the money went. I stuck to the budget. But that will not be true. So if you're telling yourself, yeah, I'm spending 2 hours playing with my kids. And what you're actually doing is, that 2 hours where you're on your phone and going, super awesome. So cool. You're not playing with your kid. Your kid is craving your attention and you're going to find yourself tired and frustrated because your mindless screen activity is draining. If you're telling yourself it takes me 15 minutes to put dinner together and it's actually taking you 2 hours, that's really empowering to know. You can say, oh my God, no wonder I don't have time for anything. I'm spending 2 hours making dinner for 3 children who don't eat it. And maybe it's 2 hours because you're trying to do a lot of things at once in that time that you're getting dinner together. So once you track your time and you're honest about it, you learn all of these amazing things. Like I have a student who, you tell yourself, I'm not spending any time with my kids. I'm not spending enough time with my kids. But when you track your time, this is what happened to my student. She discovered every evening after dinner, I take the kids up for a bath. And she said, I leave my phone downstairs when I do this. I don't take it with me. So I take the kids up for a bath. I've got 2 kids in the bathtub. We do that for like 45 minutes. And then we put on pajamas and then we jump in bed and we read stories. And that's another like 45 minutes plus a half hour of like getting dressed and whatever and teeth brushing and all of those things. 2 hours that she's spending with her kids every single evening. But the story in her head is, I'm not spending any time with my kids.
Crazy.
Right? Right? And you're giving your kids 2 hours of focused time every single evening. Like that's amazing. That's amazing. So give yourself credit for that. Acknowledge the things that you are spending your time on. And when you know them, when you're being honest about them, you start to you make all these amazing discoveries. And here's one other thing that you need to know. Once you start tracking your time, you're going to discover there are no typical weeks. What does that mean? It means every single week has the craziness of its own, whether it's the car is in the shop or there's a dentist appointment or the kid is homesick or there was a crazy snowstorm. Forget about the idea of a typical week. That doesn't exist. Build your week with that in mind, with the fact that there is no such thing as a typical week, and you will be a much happier person. I can't tell you how many people I talk to about tracking their time and they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to do it this week because this week is crazy. If you go in with that attitude, you're never, ever going to do it and you're never going to make any changes. Tracking a week that you think is a crazy week can actually be super helpful because you get to see on paper exactly how you spent your time during what felt like a totally insane time. And sometimes you take a look and you're like, oh my God, yeah, Monday was like, whoa, like absolutely slamming crazy. But look, on Tuesday, I had 6 hours of nothing smack in the middle of the day. And on Thursday, I had time to go for a run. It's really eye-opening because when you look back on that week in your mind, you remember crazy Monday and that fills up your whole memory and you don't think how it felt Thursday morning when you were out there running. But if you've got it on paper, It's there and you can't argue with it. You're like, oh yeah, even in that crazy week, I still had time to go running. Cool. The first time I did my own time audit was about 15 years ago. And at the time, I had 4 children, ages 1 through 7. And I thought I had a good sense of how I was spending my time every single day. I knew, for example, that I knew in my bones that I was spending 12 hours in the kitchen cooking every single week. I knew that I spent 6 hours on laundry every week. I knew I had 20 hours of paid childcare, and I was using that time to work on projects for clients. And I also knew in my bones that I did not have a single free minute to spend on personal writing projects. Like I wanted to write a book. So my plan, I came up with this fantastic plan. You ready? I was going to order dinner twice a week and send the laundry out once a week. And I knew that was going to cost us money, but I was like, I need this time. This is the only way I'm going to be able to buy myself some extra time. And then I did a time audit. So for that whole week, every half hour, I was writing down what I was doing. The first day, I took my coffee into my office and I sat down to work on a client project. But when I opened up my computer, my brother instant messaged me to say, hey, what are we getting mom for Mother's Day? So we kicked around a couple of ideas. We found something and I placed the order at Amazon. It took 15 minutes. Then I opened the client file that I was going to be working on, and I saw the note I'd written to myself the day before reminding me to call my daughter's teacher. Now, this is 15 years ago, so I have no idea what I was calling the teacher about, but I knew I put the reminder there because this teacher was only available to talk during the morning hours. Yeah. So in my head, when I sat down at my desk, I was working. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with talking to my brother or picking out a present for my mom or speaking to my kid's teacher. Those are important things, but I can't call that work, right? Like that's not part of what I was getting paid to do. Guess what else I found out? What? I was spending maybe 5 hours a week cooking each week, maybe like that's tops, like we were eating a lot of macaroni and cheese, and there's like, I was not making fancy meals. So it was not 12, it was 5 hours, right? And I was maybe spending 2 hours a week on laundry because it turns out I was not actually taking the laundry, to the river to scrub it on the washboard. I was putting it in a machine and moving it to a different machine, right? So where was my time going? Well, it was going to Words with Friends. I spent an insane amount of time playing that stupid game on my phone. I love it. I'm still obsessed.
How many hours a week were you doing that?
A lot, because in my head, I thought I was doing it like 2 or 3 minutes here and there. But in reality, it was like half an hour at a time, multiple times a day. Because you know how it happens? You sit down and you play your turn and you've got like 7 turns to play and you think about each word and whatever. And you don't notice how much time has gone by. And literally every time I picked up my phone, there would be that notification, like you have your turn to play. So I would play it. Hours of my life on this game. The other thing I discovered was that I was spending a ridiculous amount of time running errands in my car, driving all over town a couple of times a week at dumb times of the day for no good reason other than I thought of something and I took care of it right then and there. So when I had that information in writing in a chart in front of me, it was really easy to say, I need to delete Words with Friends from my phone and I need to consolidate my errands. So now I'm not crazy. I didn't get rid of Words with Friends altogether, but I put it on my iPad because I use my iPad in a totally different way from the way I use my phone. I use my iPad when I'm in bed, when I'm relaxing, when I'm having fun, not during time that I'm supposed to be getting things done, right? And by consolidating my errands and saying, okay, I only do errands on, Mondays or whatever it is, fine. Now during the rest of the week, when I think of something, I'm just going to write it down. I'm going to do it on Mondays during the time that I have for it. So making these 2 tiny changes, neither of these changes cost me any money or really any negative consequences. It wound up giving me 10 hours back in my week. And I didn't have to spend the money on ordering the food or sending out the laundry, which would not have saved me time anyway. Okay. So once you know the truth about your time, then you're in a place where you can make smart decisions. Now, my personal belief is that if you can find 7 to 10 hours in your week, you have the time you need to start a business. And the thing that's going to help you the most as you're starting a business is having smart habits in place. So when I talk about habits, I'm talking about the things that you do without thinking about them. So here's an example. When I get in my car, I have to punch a 4-digit code into a keypad before I can start the car. It's really dumb. It's an insurance thing in Israel where I live. So whatever. Anyway, I often realize after I have started the car and pulled out of my street that I cannot actually recall having put in the numbers, but I obviously did because the car wouldn't start if I didn't. Mm-hmm. Putting in my code is something that I do without having to think, I'm going to punch in the code now. No matter how tired I am when I go upstairs for bed, I always brush my teeth. Sometimes when I get in bed, I can't remember if I brushed my teeth, but I know that I did because I can taste the toothpaste and feel my clean teeth. So habits are the things that we do without thinking about them because they're automatic. Now, there's another Stanford researcher because Stanford is full of awesome people. This guy is named BJ Fogg, and he pioneered this idea of tiny habits, which is the action that you take to help you establish the habit you want to have in your life. You can even call it a meta habit. For example, if you'd like to work on your business, you don't start by saying, I'm going to write 3 blog posts every morning for my business. That is a great way to make sure you never, ever write a single creative word ever. Instead, you start by finding an anchor. Tiny habits are built on anchors. An anchor is something you know you already do every day at a set time or in a specific place. So let's say you know that every morning you have your first cup of coffee within moments of arriving in your kitchen. That's an anchor. You do it every morning at roughly the same time and in the same place. Using tiny habits, you can establish routines over time, which make it easier for you to do the things that you want to do. As an inherently lazy person, I am all about smart habits in my life. So for example, it's not a priority for me to organize my closet, but I want to be able to find my clothes. So I have a habit that started from a tiny habit and it's grown. Every time I walk into my closet, I put away 3 things properly. So most of the time, my closet is mostly okay. It's never going to be ready for an IKEA photo shoot, and that is totally fine with me. On the business side, I have habits that I've created and put into place to engage with potential clients, to create content, to pitch my services to people who can hire me, and so on. By making these habits, I don't have to think about them. And I can just get them done. So we've talked about the 3 keys that you need to be successful in your business and in life. It starts with fixing your mindset, right? Getting rid of the stories you've been telling yourself for a long time. Remembering that those stories aren't necessarily grounded in truth and replacing those old stories with new ones. Like, okay, it's difficult and challenging for me to find my way home when I'm someplace, and I can learn how to do it better. Or, okay, parallel parking is not my strongest, whatever. And I can spend an afternoon practicing and I'll probably improve, right? You can tell the things that Abbi has difficulty with. I get lost everywhere and parallel parking is a challenge for sure. And I'm getting better every day. If you can be truthful about your time, you will learn all kinds of amazing things and you will be able to find the time that you need, that you want to be able to do things. Oh, wow. Hold on. Hang on one second. I have people coming in. There we go. Okay. So we're kind of wrapping up. If you're truthful about your time, it's going to make your life much, much simpler. And if you build smart habits, it's going to make it easier to get the things done in the time that you have for them. So it'll be much simpler for you if you work on establishing habits and if you start with tiny habits and you use those habits to ensure that you're spending your time doing the things that you want to be doing, your life is going to be a lot more fun. And you're going to have the time to build the business that you want to build, even while you're busy being a mom.
Somebody, here's some feedback.
So fix your mindset, be truthful about your time, and build smart habits. So I want to help you with that time piece. And that's something that I have for you. So if you head over to successfulfreelancemom.com/time, you're going to find that you can download my totally free time makeover workbook. And this is just a simple workbook that will walk you through the process that we talked about here of tracking your time for a full week so that you can really evaluate where are you actually spending your time. And then you can make decisions about, does that match up with what you say your priorities are? Right. And again, I really encourage you to switch that sentence around in your mind. Anytime you're tempted to say, oh, I don't have time for that, switch it around. Say, it's not a priority for me to do that thing. So I don't have time to go to the gym, or the gym is not a priority for me. And if it feels weird to say that, like if it's like, oh, that's not who I am. Okay, well, your actions are not aligning with your priorities, right? Like you've got to be honest with yourself. It only ever works if you're honest with yourself. So that's what I have. I'm going to stop sharing and we can just kind of chat about this. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So speaking about honesty, right? Like what you were saying, like going to the gym. Like one thing that happened for me is that I was thinking going to the gym takes so long. I'm going to the gym to take a 1-hour class, and it's about 20 minutes there and 20 minutes back. And but that hour of class was in the middle of the morning. So there wasn't enough time for me to get really a lot done in the early morning. Then I went to the gym. When I came back, I wasted time until it was time to prepare lunch, right? So for me, going to the gym in the morning became, I no longer have mornings, right? That's that idea of looking at things objectively and seeing the reality of what it is, right? And I know for myself, I know that I waste at least 2 hours a day. I've never deluded myself about that. And I'm also lazy. And so I'm also always looking for methods. I'm always looking for systems, right? To make things easier and to make things faster.
Yes.
And so one thing that I have done lately, right, is I try to combine the time I waste with things that don't require a lot of mind effort. So for example, I know I waste time watching Latin American soap operas on Netflix, right? I tell myself I have to do this so I don't forget my Spanish. But now, I'm watching the soap opera while I'm putting away the laundry, or I'm watching the soap opera while I'm cooking, right? But, and that what you said, like, I can relate so much to some of the things you said, but one of those was, like, I used to say I work so many hours a day, right? Because I was counting the hours I was in my office. And so as I was in my office watching streaming service, or answering emails that were not related to business, or going on Facebook or Instagram or looking at things, right? And so that is one important thing, is to be like what you said, be honest. There's no problem with being honest if you're not judging yourself, right?
That's a really important point. When my students go through this time audit for the first time, it can be really like they feel very judgmental towards themselves. And I remind them all the time, there's no judgment here. You're a scientist. You're collecting data. You're not saying to yourself, oh, I'm a bad person because I spent my time on this. It is totally okay to have dedicated time for Netflix. What you want to do is be conscious that you're making that you're making a conscious choice. This is my downtime and I'm watching this show on Netflix because it gives me joy. And I'm doing that instead of doing something else, and rather than falling into the trap of, well, I came home and I sat down on the couch and I never got up again. Like, you want to be making conscious choices. For me, like, I have shows that I'm obsessed with. Okay. And I'm weird. I like zombies. So I really love The Walking Dead. So whenever The Walking Dead would come out with a new season, like I would wait, for the season to be there. And then I would schedule like literally 2 days on my calendar where I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm watching The Walking Dead. And I would just watch the whole season all at once. Yeah, it was crazy. Like also, it's not a smart thing to do because then you have a lot of weird dreams about zombies. I don't recommend it. But, but like, it's totally okay to have downtime. And then it's much more fun when I've scheduled this downtime. And I don't mean the sense of like every minute of your day has to be scheduled, but like I am choosing to spend this time doing a thing that I enjoy, and I'm not going to feel bad about it. It's like, if you're going to eat a brownie and enjoy it, dude. Like, don't sit there with every bite saying, oh, I shouldn't be eating this. Have a brownie. Like, that's cool. Watch Netflix. I don't care, do things. It's not about judgment. It's about collecting data and seeing how you actually spend your time. What people find is it's like, it's like we talked about earlier, like we don't give ourselves enough credit for the things we are doing. And then we also don't notice like where there's these like gaps of time. Another thing that people have a tendency to do that can really mess us up is we're super unrealistic about time. Like if I see, like, let's say, before Corona, when we were still going places all the time and whatever, and meetings were at school and not on Zoom and all those things, right? So let's say I see a 2-hour block on my calendar. And before that block, I have to drop one kid off at soccer. And after that block, I have to take another kid to ballet, right? But I've got 2 hours in the middle. So in my brain, I'm like, oh, 2 hours. I'll schedule a 2-hour task. Wrong. That 2 hours is not 2 hours. It's like 45 minutes in a best case scenario, like, because you're driving from one place to another and you're going to go to the bathroom and somebody's going to call you. Like, you don't have 2 uninterrupted hours. So when you act like you do, and then you're surprised when you didn't finish the thing that is going to take you 2 hours, like, that's setting yourself up to be disappointed again and again. For me, it was life-changing. The day that I realized how long it took me to get out the door with 5 kids.
Yes.
Like when I know that for us, I mean, now the kids are bigger, but like back in the day, I mean, it was like a good 17 to 22 minutes to get everybody in the car. Like I knew from the time I said, we're leaving till the time we pulled out, it was between 17 and 22 minutes. So my husband would say things like when we carpooled with other people to school in the morning, he would say things like, I'm going to be at your house at 7:07. And they'd be like, 7:07. He's like, yeah, I'm going to be there at 7:07 and I'm pulling away at 7:09. So tell your kids to be outside. It's hysterical. Like, but we knew like how long it would take us to get in the car and get out the door in the morning. So we are still, I mean, we are always the people who, we had people over, it was the last night of Hanukkah on Sunday. So we had people over to light candles with us. And one, we did it at our house because we're like, at our house, we control things. And we said, we're starting at 6. And I made the food starting at like 4 so that it would be ready at 6. And of course we were ready at 6 and the people were not there until like 6:30, 6:45, but at least everything was ready when they walked in, like,
yeah,
it's just how we are. So.
And I think that one thing that you didn't mention, but I want to ask you about is like you help moms become freelance business owners, right? Or freelancers working from home. And so you're talking about carving out time to be able to have your business and to run your business, right? But what you didn't talk about is how when you learn to be efficient that way, you're not just being efficient in the way you manage household, but you also become more efficient when you're running your business so that you can stay home, right? And so, because I'll tell you for myself, like right now, I honestly only work about 2-3 hours a day. I could say 4 to 6, but that's not true. And so it's just about 2-3 hours a day, right? On Saturdays, I work a little bit more and I don't work on Sundays. But today I make more money than I made back in the day working as a graphic designer when we lived in Mississippi, working full-time or more, right? And
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's because when you are your own boss, you control the finances, you control the prices, you control how many clients you take on. So tell us a little about that, like, because I know you have a specific type of business you teach about, right?
Yeah. So I teach very specifically on getting into freelance writing and building a business around that, which is awesome. If you enjoy writing and you've always thought, wow, it'd be cool if I could get paid for this. It's totally possible. The thing is, I mean, I've been a freelancer my entire adult life, and I didn't have great systems in place for a long time because I just didn't, right? It was only like kind of as I hit my 30s and beyond that I was like, I really don't like the way my life looks right now. I would like it to look different. So in the past, like when I was running my business when my kids were smaller, again, like I said, I spent a lot of time that I felt like I was working, but it turns out I was not. And I worked really hard. I would make like $4,000 a month, but I would work really, really hard for that money. There were a lot of hours that I was at my desk and a lot of hours that I was actually working to pull in that $4,000 a month. Fast forward to today, and I've made a lot of changes. And the biggest change is having systems and processes in place that help me run my business efficiently. I mean, like my business will bring in $400,000 this year, and I definitely do not work 40 hours a week, like not even close, right? Like you, I work I'm probably at my desk 4 to 5 hours a day. And I'm probably like solidly working 3 hours a day. And I 5 days a week, 4 to 5 days a week. Honestly, when I looked at it recently, I was like, almost every week, I only work 4 days a week. Like there's always a reason that I can't work on the Friday and the Sunday and whatever. And I never work on Saturdays. So like, it's, so it's usually 4 days a week, and I get the stuff done and I don't feel the stress, and it's totally different now than it used to be. And that really is a result of being honest about my time, being honest about the projects that I want to work on and that I want to take on, and having systems in place to get them done efficiently.
So what you teach people to do is to write for businesses, right? Like to do copywriting for businesses.
Yeah.
Like,
copywriting for clients, for business, like it could be corporate clients, it could be business owners like you and me.
So it could be like websites, like sales pages, and
it could be websites, it could be sales pages, it could be email sequences. Yes, love those. It could be blog posts. It could be any, really, like what I tell my students is look around. Everything that has words on it around you, someone got paid to write it. And that person is often a freelancer. And it's not because that freelancer knew more than you or whatever. It's just that that person knew very specifically how to get clients. And that's what I teach. So, I mean, I also teach like how to write the things that clients want, but like a big part of what I teach is how to go out and get the clients.
But I had seen your bullet points, and you had said, are you smarter than a fifth grader, right? And I thought, I wonder if that's because you have to write for a fifth grader when you do copywriting.
Oh, that's funny. Well, yeah, I mean, it's true. Most copywriting is supposed to be simple and straightforward and easy to understand. Like you never want people to, when you're writing for business, and particularly when you're writing, I mean, really when you're writing anything, but especially when you're writing to sell, you don't want people to be confused. You don't want them to say, what is that? You want them to get it right away. So it should be very simple and straightforward. I always encourage clarity over being clever. Like it's not worth trying to come up with a fun headline or whatever, like call it what it is, you know? Like here, I could have come up with a funny title for what we were talking about, but building a business as a mom, super, super clear what we're talking about. Like you look at it, you understand what we're talking about, what we're going to be covering. It makes sense. You don't have to guess. So
one of my coaches, he says, it says what it says it does on the tin. You know?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And I know, like, so you have a particular specialty regarding freelancing, but the things you teach, I think are so useful for any mom that wants to have a side business. And I think every mom should want to have a side business.
I mean, and that goes back to that. It's okay to want more. Like I remember when my first baby was born and I loved her so much, and you know, she was so like amazing. And also I wanted something of my own identity outside of being her mother. So.
That's it. Yeah. And I can so relate to that, you know, because like I'm very family focused, and my children are my life. I used to homeschool until 2 years ago. But, you know, at some point you want people to know your name. And like for a great part of their growing up years, people didn't know my name. I was someone's mom. You know? Right. Yeah.
It makes me crazy when they call and they're like, hey, Adi's mom. I'm like, I have an actual name. Thanks. It's Abbi. It makes me crazy.
Yeah. And because being a mom is a huge part of your identity, but it's not all of you.
It's not the only piece of me.
Right? Yeah. And being a mom is something that is temporary. I mean, you're always going to be a mom, right? But raising a family, raising kids, you know, that is temporary. If everything goes well, they're going to go on to have their own life, their own adventures. You know, the natural order of life is for your kids to pull away from you. And so you don't want that time to come and you be empty-handed.
Exactly. I work with a lot of women who are kind of in that late 40s, early 50s stage, and it's happening to them. You know, the kids are leaving home and suddenly this woman who gave up a career earlier on and was home and was present is suddenly like, now what? And my purpose is gone. And I don't want people to feel like that, right? Like I want you to have something that is yours and that is it is exciting and that lights you up. I mean, my husband laughs at me. He's like, I've never seen you have this much fun in your life. I'm like, yeah, because I really love what I'm doing. I'm really, like I'm just enjoying it. I don't ever think of what I do as work. I wake up and I'm excited that I get to do it, and it's a lot of fun. So
if you're a married mom, it doesn't matter how good a provider your husband is, you still want to have your own money, right?
Yes.
And I think and there's also, so many unpredictable things that could happen. Right. And so I think if you have at least some income of your own, a way to make your own money, you just feel more secure in every aspect of your life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely true. I mean, I got married when I was extremely young. I was 20 and my husband was 23. So we never had his money and my, it was always to get, because we didn't have very much between us. We had $10, right? So, so we're just put it together. But then as we started having kids and I saw other women who knew nothing about the family finances, number one, and just seemed very helpless in that sense. And that was something that I didn't want for myself. So I became more involved in our finances. And there were times when I wanted to be able to buy something without having, not to ask permission, but I didn't want to have to justify my expenses. I want to buy, that shirt or that phone or whatever. And I don't want to have to tell anybody why I'm doing it. I just want it. Right. Yeah. And I'm not a marriage counselor. I've been married for 25 years, but I'm not a marriage counselor, and I would never presume to give anybody marriage advice. But I think that talking about finances and things that you're spending money on is important. And also I like being able to say, I'm going to take this money and spend it because I can. And, when I first started freelancing, it meant that we had money for the extras. It meant that the kids could go to soccer or piano or whatever it was. And now it's totally different. We 2 years ago, right before Corona, we booked a vacation. We were going to take my husband's parents and my parents to Greece with us and our 5 kids for Passover for the whole week in a resort. And we paid for the whole thing up front because we could. And then Corona came and we didn't get to go. So that really sucked. But, but we planned it and we paid for it and we could have done it, financially we could do that. And that's a big part of that is because there's money, I make this money and we can make these choices. I think too, sometimes we get caught up in if I have a lot of money, will I still be a good person? Yeah. Why not? Money is a tool and you can use it to do all kinds of things that are awesome. So, yeah.
And I think even when you think you don't need more money, okay, I get everything from my spouse or whatever, but having an income as a mom increases your quality of life too. You get to say take a nicer vacation, take a longer vacation. And I also, exactly. For myself, I think, at some point I would like my husband to be able to say, I'm going to work less this year,
That's a big thing. My husband has been, he works in high tech, and he's been with his current company for 11 years. And the company's going through some transitions right now. So about a year ago, they said that they were most likely spinning off his whole division. They were no longer going to be dealing with that whole financial services. So they would be getting rid of that whole side of the business. And it was very uncertain what was going to happen. And he said to me, I'm not even worried because you have this money now. And even if he said to me, even if they fired me today and we didn't get another penny and it took me an entire year to find something, we would be okay for an entire year with just your income, and without making any changes to our lives. So that was it was really reassuring for him to know that. It put him in this much better place. And then ultimately it puts him in a place where if the company does offer some sort of early severance or whatever, he can choose to take that based on what he wants. He's not forced into it, and he's not forced to take a job that he doesn't want. He has opportunities and choices, and that's really exciting.
Freedom for him.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so that's really, that's where we are.
thank you so much for taking this time to talk to my followers and my students and clients. And it's so important to share these things. And I know a lot of the people who are on my list or in my group, they are moms, or I mean, they're raising a family right now, or their kids are grown, and now like they think about their daughters, like they may not be thinking about how they can start a side business, but they worry about their daughters, and how the daughter needs to have more of a life of her own and things like that. And these are things that I think all women need to hear, but especially women that are family focused, especially homemakers, the women that have decided to stay home with their kids because they believe it's the best thing for their kids. But we are always giving something up, right? And so it's awesome to hear you say you don't have to give all of it up, right? And that you actually can have your cake and eat it too.
Yes, absolutely. What I say is you don't have to choose between your kids and your career. You can have it all. You have to decide what all looks like for you. But the moment you decide it, you can absolutely have it.
That is fantastic. And with that, we're going to end our time together. And thank you again for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.